So, I've been doing a lot of thinking during the Devil era, and it struck me that there is not as much discussion surrounding the lore and symbolism in ONEUS as I see in other fandoms, despite the fact that we have been explicitly told that there is lore, and we have been handed not just breadcrumbs, but giant hunks of bread that tell us the threads to follow in the lore. Some of it can be a little confusing, I understand that, and so that's why a lot of thought has been happening in my brain, what little of it is left, especially after this comeback anyway. So I've been writing down a lot of these thoughts and posting them to Reddit and my Tumblr, and then I thought, why don't I just make a video essay about this on YouTube? So here we are, hello. This is a ONEUS lore essay about the symbolism of Devil. Specifically, I'm going to be going into the teasers from ONEUS Twitter in this video. Now, when I say teasers, I don't mean the teaser images. I mean specifically the visual imagery in the first visual teasers that were posted, and also the MV teasers. So, let's get into that. First of all, as a foreword, please keep in mind that I've done literary and film analysis for a long time, just as a silly hobby, and one of the hallmarks of that hobby is being able to make connections where none may exist. So, I guess that's the devil in those details. If you don't like over-analysis and possibly thin symbolism reaches, please, this probably isn't the video for you, but go on, if you like that sort of thing, join me. Anyway, the teasers posted to ONEUS Twitter on January 2nd had pre-teasers that were posted on the fan cafe, and I strongly believe that these pre-teasers were purposefully posted so that Toomoon would know which member was symbolized by which teaser card. I also believe that they hold their own strong significance if you look at the graphic design of each. So I'll start by noting that the teaser cards were posted in two different batches. The first batch feature red and warm colored borders on the oracle cards, and warm color schemes on the teasers themselves. And the second batch feature blue and cool colored borders on the oracle cards and cool color schemes on the teasers. Now, immediately what comes to mind when I look at all these together is that there is an obvious standout in design, and that is Xion. I'll get to that, but first let's take this member by member. This is the time when I give the intro for Keonhee. Okay, there's a lot going on here, symbolically. First of all, the element that's all over his card is water. He's half submerged in water, and there are waterfalls drowning the other chess pieces in the full teaser. What does water represent? As a water sign, I could just toss my hair and be like, the best things. But water is traditionally a symbol of cleansing, renewal, and life. Beyond that, though, especially in astrology, water is all about adaptability, depth of emotion, and resilience. I'm going to focus on resilience, adaptability, and renewal for Keonhee a little later, but let's look a little more at the other symbols here first, because they're crucial. Being half submerged on his fan cafe pre-teaser makes me think of someone halfway between death and rebirth. There's another chess piece, the rook specifically, floating in the water next to him. Contrary to what many people think, the rook does not represent a castle among the chess pieces. Its etymology, it comes from the Persian word for chariot, as well as its movement on the chessboard represents a war chariot. Movement, dynamism, moving straight ahead into battle. What in the world, then, is a piece representative of movement and progress doing floating in the water that represents renewal and emotional depth? Perhaps this means that Keonhee's character in this storyline is unable to completely move forward until he can complete his renewal and accept life. What has he accepted instead? Well, there's that symbol in his oracle card itself, which took me out the first time I saw it. It's the king, which is the piece in chess that has the least potential for movement. It can only move one space at a time, but the most power. The game ends if a king is captured. Then we look at the final teaser posted to ONEUS Twitter, and we can see that not only is the rook joined by the queen under the waterline, if we're considering that the overarching lyrical theme is one of lost love, this makes sense. But here also the king is fully submerged. Skirt! Rewind, rewind, rewind. Let's think about how we saw Keonhee in To Be or Not to Be. He started out blindfolded in flowers in a way that suggested innocence to me, ignorance of certain things, but with symbols of purity obscuring his vision. He took off the blindfold, the screen turned red, and next thing we know he's being brought back to life by Xion, despite what appears to be a struggle. To stay alive? To stay dead? I don't want this to turn into an analysis of To Be or Not to Be, but keep in mind that Keonhee seems to have had the most blatant struggle between life and death up to now, even before this comeback. By the end of the To Be or Not to Be video, he's donning the crown. Even among the monarchs, he is the supreme. So now we have Keonhee as king. And boy, do we ever have Keonhee as king. Every single thing about his MV teaser screams power and superiority and control. Let's not forget, though, that in order to move forward and progress, Keonhee, the king, needs to allow himself to be fully reborn. What is he still clinging to that keeps him only half submerged and half cleansed? Is it the power? Is it the control? Let go, man! In his teaser, you also see Keonhee seemingly in possession of the symbols that, in To Be or Not to Be, were larger than life and holding the 6 monarchs in their clutches. The hand, the bust, even the sun itself. This dude's control is so tight on everything around him that he even has the Keepers of the Flame at his command, which I am reading as the servants in this underworld they find themselves in. They're surrounding him, but obviously waiting for his word. Keonhee, let go. Or don't. I mean, you look really awesome like this. I'm looking respectfully. But let yourself grow and move past this. Now we do the Ravn one. Each of the fan cafe pre-teasers seemed to call to mind a specific element. With Keonhee, we had water, so what do we have for Ravn? Well, the colors are dark red, black, with golden hues underneath it all, representative of passion, but also darkness. Images seem to be burning away, most specifically his image. The element here is fire, a force of death, of destruction, of passion. This ties to my theory that Ravn's character in this storyline is self-destructive when he follows his passion and allows himself to be engulfed in this, maybe even thrives in it. Think about To Be or Not to Be, where Ravn's particular vice as a monarch seemed to be wrath. So much killing, sir! Oh my god, stop. Turning that wrath on himself, perhaps, is what we're seeing here. All of his teasers are thick with roses as well. His oracle card is itself a red rose. His MV teaser is full of red roses. Now, red roses are a complex symbol, but context clues usually tell the story. They can mean the obvious Western literary symbol of romance, passion, and the way beauty can be dangerous, what with the thorns and all, but roses can also stand for devotion to secrecy and high defenses. I'm choosing to interpret this as romance and passion all the way down. It's a Ravn thing, after all. I also note the thorny vines in the fan cafe pre-teasers encircling the main figure. Those lend credence to the beauty and passion being destructive reading. The way Ravn's shots are framed more than any other member in his MV teaser make it appear that he is being actively consumed by fire and by passion, trapped behind the flames, burned by them, possibly thriving in them. Oh my god, my cat. What? Go away. I love you. Go away. The thing in Ravn's teaser card that I'm most losing my mind over, however, is the fact that his is the only one with a repeating pattern. Get it? A pattern that repeats? Like a cycle of self-destructive tendencies when it comes to love and passion? Oh, shit! Talking about Seoho. There's Seohos in this house. There's Seohos in this house. Okay, shut up. So, Seoho's MV teaser was so good with the symbolism, it messed me up. So, looking at his teaser cards in the context of writing an analysis of them, it has me smiling ear to ear. First, let's talk about the color symbolism, blue and black. In the fan cafe teaser, Seoho is almost entirely enshrouded in black. With this, and then with the official teaser card, the moon is providing the only light, but none of it seems to be reaching Seoho himself. Now, I'm gonna go about this treating the fact that it's ONEUS and the moon is a big meta deal as an addition to these thoughts rather than the basis for them. What do we know about the moon in relation to the storyline of Come Back Home and To Be or Not to Be? Well, when it's turned red, it's an evil portent. And Seoho's teaser cards are in the blue spectrum, and this moon appears to be subverting the red moon high above the kingdom, ostensibly that of the monarchs. A blue moon holds its own significance and symbolism, though nothing is especially concrete. A blue moon is thought to lend power to the magical and divine because it's a very rare occurrence. So then there's Seoho's oracle card symbol, the spinning top, which represents balance, life and death, and is used extensively in divination and ritual since ancient times. You can also see that its image is reflected, with the reflection being faint but definitely highlighted. The spinning top isn't the only symbol here though. There's an amorphous encroaching darkness splattered here and there. Taking all this together, it seems Seoho is out here representing themes of light and dark, contrast, reflection, and temperance. Or at least, the attempt at those things. Even the element represented on his card, any way you look at it, is moonlight, a light that cuts through the darkness by its very nature, a contrast of two things. I know K-pop stans like to misuse this word a lot, and I'm one of those K-pop stans, but I'm going to use it in its purest definition here: duality. That encroaching amorphous darkness keeps needling at me, and I think that's what we're seeing in the MV teasers. Darkness is taking over a bit, and Seoho is absolutely thriving in it. He's burning this effigy, possibly an effigy of himself, I'm not sure. He's gazing on in creepy fascination. He's stomping all over those rose petals. There are 6 bags hanging from the ceiling here, but Seoho only tears open one and proceeds to eat the rose petal heart. I mean, take that interpretation of this particular scene with a grain of salt, but I maintain my claim on this one. Seoho is experiencing the destruction of something passionate and beautiful, possibly himself as he gives into the darkness, and he wants to be an active part of it. He wants the best of both worlds, according to the symbolism in his teaser cards, but that's not how destroying yourself works. So only the moon can light the way out of darkness now. Leedo. God, I don't have a deep voice, as much as I try. I wish I did. Alright, let's go. Leedo's symbolism took me some thinking. There are the obvious themes of time running out, with the last grains of sand running through the hourglass, the pocket watch, etc. In the fan cafe teaser card, the image of a blank clock face seems superimposed on his chest, near his heart. As opposed to the others in the warm color spectrum of teasers, Hwanwoong and Ravn, Leedo is only backlit in red, and the stormy black-gray background brings to mind a foreground of discord and mystery and strife, for which passion is only an underpinning, but most of all it brings to mind smoke. Where Ravn's teaser images made me think fire in its purest form, Leedo is the byproduct of fire, of passion and heartbreak. He's gone through it, and he's got the scars to prove that. That seems to be the elemental influence we're dealing with here. I also have to point out the colors on the hourglass here are inverted in a photo-negative effect, and while that seems like it could have been a color scheme choice, I have to follow all the threads where they lead and point to the lyrical theme of many songs in the storyline thus far, turning back time. The clock over the heart, the inverted hourglass, the swirling clock face in the background of the oracle card, it all spells regret and the inability to let go to me. Reliving the same thing in one's own heart, wanting to go back but being unable to. In To Be or Not to Be and even Come Back Home, we saw Leedo as a very emotional figure, and this is no different. He was exhibiting a lot of anger in a tub of blood. He was being held in that giant hand. Now, I'm formulating a theory that the symbolism of hands represents the relationship or experience itself that led to the heartbreak on the lyrical theme, but I'm not quite there yet. However, with even the whisper of that reading in mind, Ito was, more than anyone else, held in the palm of his own heartbreaking experience and getting angrier and angrier about it. Hell, you could even interpret the heartbreak as a non-romantic one if we move into the overt symbolism of the visual story arc. Ito never wants to lose anyone again, ever. The human child, the ones who trusted him as a monarch, his past self. So the clock in his heart rewinds, the clock in his heart resets. In his MV teaser, the unifying factor in all the scenes is the irreverence. He's Joker-fied, and it's not just the suit. Where Ravn was bringing to mind images of self-destruction, Ito's flaming wings have big, avenging angel energy, and his wild animal behavior in the paintball scenes brought to mind a man who can no longer be controlled and who laughs in the face of being hurt, maybe even by his own demons. He's saying, "I dare you." That scream? That growl? Have you ever had your heart broken and you can't move on? Nor can you take responsibility. You just want to go back. Maybe not to make things better, but to never have experienced the heartbreak at all for even another minute. That's what this is giving me. He's been engulfed by the flames already, but now the smoke is in his eyes. Okay, Hwanwoong. Let's see me butcher this boy's name every single time I say it. I'm sorry ahead of time for butchering his name every time I say it. Okay, first, a big old disclaimer that I feel quite strongly about. I have absolutely no cultural claim to sacred dreamcatchers, and I don't agree with RBW using dreamcatcher imagery here. Dreamcatchers tend to feature prominently in the New Age boho aesthetic communities, and I can understand that a lot of people may not be aware of their deep cultural significance to some indigenous peoples because of that. I'm going ahead with this analysis viewing this dreamcatcher under a co-opted lens as a symbol, but I won't be analyzing the dreamcatcher itself, as in its construction and elements. Because of that, this might sound a little more sparse than the others, but it's a choice. So, from the beginning, Hwanwoong's teaser cards seemed weird to me, until I started to understand the elemental symbolism at play here. And once I arrived at that, I better understood what was going on. There are feathers, bright white, by which Hwanwoong is obviously shadowed. This is air in the open sky. Hwanwoong is above it all. He is going with the wind and wherever it takes him. Air is movement, air is transportive, and less popularly, air is representative of knowledge and awareness. I'm not going to go too much into the very unusual image of Hwanwoong they elected to use for the Fan Cafe teaser, because I know these were repurposed for these teasers from other shoots and aren't pertinent in and of themselves. Okay, I'm gonna level with you all here. I spent about 10 minutes on the Fish and Wildlife Service.gov website using their Feather Atlas Finder tool, which is not very well coded, to try and determine what feather is in the background here. And it's at this point that I was like, oh my god, who gives a shit? No one at RBW is thinking this deeply about anything, and if they are, they're not being good enough at selling us on a Jaden Jong EXO-esque treasure hunt of symbols, so I'm the clown. I'm M. Clown, and don't trust me. Anyway, thus ends my brief crisis of faith. I'll get back to having fun with this now, but I hope you can laugh along with me. Anyway, it's probably a hawk feather, a wing feather specifically, but we're moving on because I'm not going to read too much into that. I really feel like the Dreamcatcher image is important to discuss here at least a little bit. Specifically, I was wondering, why isn't the feather the image in his oracle card then? Well, in Dreamcatchers, the feathers serve as ladders or slides down which the good dreams move to the person sleeping beneath them. The function is important to note here along with the element of air being discussed, because the feathers in the background of Hwanwoong's teaser are not hanging idly. They're floating away on the wind. They're good dreams, cast to the reaches. The Dreamcatcher itself is representing the filtering of good and bad dreams, the knowledge, like air, and protection. Hwanwoong's teaser is replete with symbolism of surveillance and observation. He has television, CCTV cameras. He stands on a bank of speakers and is the one wielding the flame actively as a tool. I believe that Hwanwoong is a prescient being in this narrative, an oracle, whether simply by simple observation or some power imbued to him as one of the 6 monarchs. He sees, he knows, and he's filtered out all the good from their situation. At this point, he's left with the bad, and he's ready to wield that knowledge. Hello everyone, this is my very talented son Xion, and I would appreciate it if you were all very nice to him. Thank you. This particular analysis owes a huge debt of gratitude and credit to Haiponiido at tumblr.com, who 1. encouraged me, and 2. opened my eyes to a theory that I now believe is the key to a lot of the what the fuckery that's going on. So I'm ready to tell everyone that theory. We see something in Xion's teaser cards that we haven't yet seen from the others. There's color, the splendor of nature, of butterflies and flowers and the blue sky. In contrast with the others, it drives home how dark and myopic their teaser cards and symbolism are, but we are, after all, talking about 5 monarchs whose souls are imprisoned beyond an unreachable sun. So what about Xion? How is he the only one with color, with life, with the vibrant sun as his element? Let's get to that in a minute. First, let's talk about the chalice. The chalice is an exhaustingly prevalent symbol throughout art and divination, spanning eras of humankind, and with different meanings along the way. In the Gothic and Carolingian periods, a chalice represented the rejection of evil and the service of the just and holy. For pagans and Wiccans, it represents fertility and the womb of the goddess. The tarot suit of cups concerns emotions and relationships, and is associated with water and also the feminine mystique. So what does a full chalice mean? Well, there's a common reading of the chalice as a vessel for breath. You breathe in, and the chalice fills. You breathe out, and the chalice is empty. Another possible reading of the full chalice is childbirth, or the presence of one's own child. So who might be divining the machinations of the 6 monarchs, possibly employing fortune tellers to pull oracle cards and cast runestones in the hope of finding out where they disappeared to and what they're planning?
Meanwhile, Helios grieved the loss of his son, Phaethon.
Why, Helios? Of course. Who's grieving the loss of his son, Phaethon? Phaethon, who was allowed to drive the chariot of the sun for 1 day, but lost control of the fire-breathing horses and was struck down to earth by Zeus. Phaethon, whose father Helios was sus that Phaethon even was his son, until apparently he went and fell to earth, and now he's all like, oh, my son, I miss my son, I'm grieving, boo-hoo. Helios, your son is doing fine, and he's found a wonderful clan of vampy and vampiric monarchs to settle in with and toss around a little of his sun prince power in the process. Xion is Phaethon, is what I'm saying. He's Phaethon. That's the thing. That's the link here.